everybody, it's Carol again from the Barrie Public Library. Welcome back to my sewing room. Today I thought I would show everybody how to make these very easy clothesline bowls. Depending on what type of thread you use, this one is just done with a variegated thread to make the colors and the designs in it. This one I've made with just the clothesline, and then I've just added some fabric scraps that I had to it. You can make them large, you can make them small, whatever size you'd like. You can use them throughout your house. You can use a small one to throw your car keys in and your house keys in. A large one this size you could put on the outside of a plant pot. And they're very, very simple to make. So let me just move this one out of the way, and I will show you what we're going to use. So we're going to use some clothesline. You can get this at any hardware store. You can get it online right now. This is 3/16 of an inch by 100 feet. So the large baskets use a complete one, or you could use it to make a couple of smaller baskets. I've cut some fabric, just some leftover fabric that I had. I've cut it at 1.5 inches, and it's about 22 inches long. You could have short scraps, you could have long scraps, whatever size you want. I took a piece of fabric and just cut it down into a few lengths so that I would have them. So fabric, your clothesline. I have these handy dandy little clips. You can use those. In order to make it easy to deal with the clothesline, it's all rolled up and it's wound around itself. So that can become a bit of a pain because it can kink and it can get knotted. So I just like to take my clothesline and unwind it all, and I just popped it into the bowl here loose. But you could use a mixing bowl, just something to keep it contained and keep it easy to manage. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use the sewing machine, and I'm going to do it on a zigzag stitch. I'm going to set my stitch at a 5 wide and a 2.5 long, and the foot that we're going to use is just your little multi-purpose foot. On my machine it's an F. My machine is a Janome. It has a little wee, I don't know if you can see that, there's a little wee red arrow. So when we're stitching and we're doing our zigzag stitch, we want to line this little arrow up with where our clothesline will meet. So where the two pieces of clothesline meet, you're going to line up the middle of your foot, your zigzag stitch on that, and that's how you're going to make sure that the thread catches both sides of your cording. Just randomly as we go along, I'll be adding fabric strips. And to begin with, your cording is cut straight, and there's going to be a little bit of fraying. So what we want to do is we want to just cut it on an angle to begin with, and that will give us a clean start. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start coiling it in very tightly to begin with. Okay, so what I've done is I've just placed a couple of little pins in to hold my little coil in place. This first part of the project is the most challenging part of it, and then after that it's just easy peasy, around and around. But what you want to make sure is that your cording is on the right hand side of where your needle is and your plate, and the bowl is going to form to the left side of your needle. So what we're going to do is we're just going to place this under. I've got my machine set for my zigzag stitch, and I'm just going to drop my needle down, and I'm just going to do a couple of little zigzags forward and back, and then we're going to move it around so that we are following our coil. As it gets bigger, it's going to be easier. Okay, now we can take those pins out because it's never good to sew over top of your pins. But just to get this started and hold everything in place, I left the pins there to begin with. And we won't need the pins anymore. I'm going to pull this out so you can see where we're at, and then we'll start stitching around. So I've got my coil sewn. That's my beginning. And then we're just going to go around and around and around. And I think actually I am going to move my basket from behind my machine to in front of my machine and just place it on the floor in front of me. And then it can just feed on up through there. Okay, here we go. And then we're just going to use our fingers. It's hard to see here, but I'm going to keep pushing against the coil so that as I'm wrapping, I'm continuing to push in and form my base. So this is forming the base of my bowl, and as we go along, eventually when it gets large enough, we'll start tilting it upright just a wee bit, and that will start to form the sides of the bowl. But you can see that's growing, and all I'm doing is keeping that center arrow on my plate, my foot, lined up in between the two cords, and I'm just going around and around and around. So I'm going to show you how to add a little bit of the fabric. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the fabric on a bit of a diagonal, and we're just going to wrap it around tightly. And this will just give your bowl a nice little shot of color. So we're just going to wrap it around tight, tight, tight. And you may want to use a clip or a paper clip to start it. Just hold it in place. And then we will just wrap it tightly. And when we come to this, it will just sew right into the other cording and add a nice little bit of color. You can place these randomly wherever you'd like. I think it looks nice if you leave a couple of rows in between that are just the plain cording, and then that really makes your fabric color pop. There we go. Okay, let's get it going. So again, you just keep pushing that cord up against your base. There we go. And now you can see the color that's been added. So I'm going to do a couple more rounds. I'm just going to pause the camera for a moment. I'll do a couple more rounds, and then we'll add some more. Okay, so I've added another strip of color, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start moving the bowl to start forming our sides. So I just want to support it a little bit with my left hand, hold it up a little bit, and as we go around and sew around in a circle, it's going to start forming the sides on our bowl. So let's just support it up here. You're going to keep pushing the cording in with your right hand and make sure that it's joining up. Keep that little arrow or the notch in your foot lined up in the middle between the two cords. And actually, if you just support it on the side of your machine, this will help form the curve to make your sides on your bowl. So as I said, the start of the project is the toughest part, just getting that little coil to hold and getting it stitched and back stitched so that it stays in place, and then the rest, it's just sewing around and around. So let's see. So you can sort of see that starting to curve up. The clothesline there are other types of cotton that you can use. I like the clothesline because it's a little bit sturdier. So the bowl tends to retain its shape a little bit more. It's not as floppy. But there's some very pretty cotton cording that you can get at any of the sewing stores. Places like Len's Mill, places like Fabricland will have it as well. Something that you can order online from Amazon. So the materials for this are all readily available and pretty inexpensive. Clothesline does not cost a whole lot, and I think the cording is, you know, it's a couple of dollars. So your thread, well, I guess that would probably be the most expensive part of the project. And whatever fabric scraps you have lying around. Okay, I think we need to add some more fabric here. I think it's about time. So again, we're just going to take the fabric and wrap it around. And I found 1.5 inches is a good width to work with the fabric. If you get much wider, it gets pretty bulky. So, but it comes together pretty quickly. Easy, fun project. And a useful project. It's something that you'll be able to make use of in so many ways around your house. Makes a great gift for someone too. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to do. So if you did it in, if you had some masculine fabrics or brown threads or black threads or gray threads, this could be something that you could make for Dad for Father's Day. That he can, and if you make a small one, he can put it on his dresser and throw his watch into it at the end of the day, and or he leave it at the front door and put his car keys in it. Whatever he wants. He could put it in his workshop if he has a workshop, or in the garage to store some of his tools. If you wanted to make one for Dad, or you could make one for Mom. Makes a nice birthday present for somebody. Or just a little something for yourself. So here we go again. Go around.